just feel like in the history of the show, there's been a couple episodes where like, listen back and make sure that sounds okay. And then like Geeta and I will listen back and be like, no, you left in the really bad part without the context around it.
Only sailors use condoms, you filthy bugger.
Oh, we get a lot of shots. Everybody come to their net. We just have to get more and more pucks to their net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Get pucks on net.
Continue to put pucks on net.
Something about pucks on net and good things happen.
Pucks on net.
We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net.
Pucks on net and driving and making a hard night on them.
5 long years.
Live on tape from Dave's East Van apartment, a stone's throw away from Commercial Drive. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast that doesn't talk about fantasy or fancy stats.
Don't identify Dave's location.
Stone's throw. That nobody knows where that is.
He's been bragging about his heel turn for the past 5 years. People should not be, led to where he lives in case there's eggs thrown or something.
Rotten tomatoes.
Dave's a good guy.
Oh, yeah, no, nobody's doubting that.
We don't want eggs thrown at the place.
I welcome all challengers and all comers.
Of course he does.
If you kill me, you become me.
All right, so if you're going to...
I heard if you cut him in half, you get 2 Daves.
Yeah, I just multiply. Like an earthworm.
Yeah, Earthworm Jim.
Earthworm Dave.
My name is Ryan Chapp. I'll be your host for the evening, and right across from me is Dave. He owns this establishment.
That's fake news. I do not own. I rent.
He rents.
Do you like a multi-million? This place is huge.
This is
like $3 million worth of real estate right here in Vancouver.
There's about 6 palatial estates in this one 2-bedroom apartment.
There's like 3 Gita's houses in this house for those listening at home.
They're actually...
That's about right.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
At least 2.5.
There's a whole bedroom I don't even go in.
Oh, that's right. There are 3. There's definitely 3.
And that's PMAC on the street, off the street.
Yeah, this is only maybe a quarter of the size of my place, but yeah, you got 4 Gitas.
We all imagine that you live in like Wayne Manor and all the furniture has white sheets on it.
A lot of it does.
Cobwebs, comical cobwebs.
Oh, there are literal, because there's parts of the house I just don't go into, and when I do, there's cobwebs.
And there's like weird violin music playing, and Paul looks out the window as sad as he did when Daniel Sedin was doing his post-game presser.
Yeah, it's not just a meme, it's my life, folks.
Just adagio for strings. And there's not even a record player. We don't even know where it's coming from.
He's also got a big painting with eyes.
Follows
holes for eyes. And then
it's old Grandpappy McClellan. Oh, no, it's a McPhail estate, isn't it?
It's the McPhail estate because we're cousins.
That's right. Paul and I may or may not be like 4th or 5th cousins.
It's a different spelling, but
we could still get married and it would be okay.
Well, that's good. And yeah, I'm all for that. Whatever makes you guys happy. And you know what? You shouldn't be pressured into taking each other's last names. Are
you going into bigamy, Dave? Is that the plan?
No,
bisexual bigamy.
No, we'll take a little.
It's the next big thing.
I'll take a little hiatus from Mrs. Dave and just go down to Gay Town for a little while.
This is dangerous territory for you, my friend.
It's like Jerry Seinfeld just said. It's like we're about the same size. So right there, you double your wardrobe.
Yeah,
that is not true.
You know how much hockey and sports
I could
you
not
watch?
fit Dave's stuff.
Do you know how much beard hair would be in the bathroom?
Oh yeah, but nobody would bug the other. It's like that could be mine. It could be his. Who cares?
Stubble.
At this point, in this
selling points,
in-depth discussion of
this is a hockey podcast.
Agita's not here, as you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
She's in Costa Rica, and so which Dave always describes these all-male reviews as
pants optional.
I was hanging brain.
Nobody wants to hear either of those things.
That's fair. So I want to thank you for joining us. Wherever you guys from, make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksOnNetC or PucksOnNetCa. And if you want to support the show monetarily, head on over to patreon.com/PucksOnNet, where you can pledge a couple of bucks. And if you want to pledge a couple of bucks, $5 or more, you can listen to Paul and I last week talk for a couple of hours about Jim Benning in a show that we're getting some positive feedback. People have actually listened to the whole thing.
That was long.
It was a long show.
Is he more infamous as a general manager than Mike Gillis, even though Mike Gillis came within an eyelash of winning a Stanley Cup?
At the time, Gillis would be infamous for, overthinking things, thinking too much outside the box, and just not taking a classic hockey approach to things. And that's why we ran him out of town.
Well, those sleep therapy things and private chefs look good when you got 28-year-old Daniel and Henrik Sedin cycling the puck down low and Roberto Luongo putting a wall up in net. Anybody can look smart.
Mm-hmm.
The sad thing is, a lot of those would have been great things, I think. He probably should have been an assistant general manager or a special advisor type of thing for outside the box thinking, as opposed to just being given the reins.
There's
right
nothing. Yeah, I'm with you. There's nothing wrong with doing those extra things, but when you are like touting them in the media as why your team is so good, you're playing us for a bunch of saps.
Yeah. The team was good because it was a damn good hockey team.
All those guys, like Burroughs was in his prime, the Sedins were in their prime, Yannick Hansen was useful back then. Rafi Torres was more than just hitting people in the head.
Bob Luongo
was in his prime. Corey Schneider was nipping at his heels, keeping him honest.
You made a great point because we got game 3 of the Devils and Tampa Bay Lightning here at your apartment, and you brought up a very good point about Corey Schneider.
He's just like any other redhead out there, folks. He just loves to stir up drama. He's fiery. Keith Kincaid, who we didn't know existed until about a couple weeks ago and had a pretty good run at the back half of the season, is the starter. He gets tamped, not his fault. I watched the games because I've had little to do since the movie wrapped. But they've got Corey Schneider in the bullpen, so they go to Corey Schneider. Schneider plays pretty well tonight. We turn on the game, and what happens? He goes down with a knee injury. They keep showing Kincaid. They cut back to Schneider. They cut back to Kincaid. They cut back to Schneider. They cut back to Kincaid.
It's like a pitcher's duel.
Yeah, it's just wherever Corey Schneider goes,
there's a little drama.
Drama follows him around.
Is Keith Kincaid drama? Is that what you're saying? Is
no, Corey Schneider's the drama.
Because it sounded like there's Corey, there's Keith, there's Corey, there's Keith.
Corey Keith. Luongo coming out of the tunnel.
It's like Matt Foley strategy of living.
Chris Terreri coming out of the tunnel.
What series have you been really keeping an eye on? Like most series we're 2 or 3 games in. Is there something that you've watched, the most you've watched of something so far?
I've seen the most I've seen is the Vegas series just because it's
7 o'clock.
It's 7 o'clock on the West Coast for the locals who listen to the show. Paul, how about you?
Sorry, I was just trying to do the math on talking about New Jersey goaltenders. Martin Brodeur was in net for 24 years for the team. This is the first time we've been talking about
45 years. I don't know. I think Foster
Devils.
Hewitt announced Martin Brodeur's first game as a New Jersey Devil.
Yeah, way back, almost the 80s.
Right before that, he announced the beginning of the what's that word? Korean War. There you go.
Yeah, when Martin Brodeur played his first game in the NHL, I was 7 years old, and that's not a joke.
Was that 1990?
1990, as a rookie, he made his debut.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, sorry, I was 6.
Yeah.
I was 6. I was in maybe the first grade when Martin Brodeur's career started.
And you're like, you saw this at the age of 6 going, he's going to be there for a long time.
I had his young guns card, and I thought his pads looked ugly. That's what I remember.
A lot of goalies had ugly pads back then.
I was like, they should hang on to Sean Burke.
A lot of goalies in general were ugly back then. Yeah, not very good looking people. I feel bad. The way they've scheduled it very well in these playoffs because a game will start at 4 and then the Jets have been starting at 4:30, so everything's staggered and you're
intermissions. It's great.
Yeah, but then Nashville is playing Colorado, and I'd have no idea what's happened in that series because there's way better games on before, during, and after that series.
It's been a weird one. Nashville's been getting off to pretty slow starts, but that crowd, like home ice advantage, you can't tell me it doesn't matter, especially in a rink like that.
Especially look at games 1 and 2 in Boston and Toronto.
Yeah, like the Nashville crowd seems to force that team to wake themselves up. It'll be interesting to see what happens tonight.
Yeah,
with that being back in Denver, but it's gone as you'd expect. They score a lot. Jonathan Bernier, not a great goalie. I think if Varlamov was healthy, it'd be a little more competitive.
Yeah,
they may have even gotten a split if Varley was healthy.
P-Mac, you watched any of that series?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that series. It's fun to watch. I mean, it's more offense than defense. Like, as good as the Vegas, you're talking about late games, Vegas and Los Angeles series has been. It's more physical, more defensive to a certain extent, and this is more wide open. Forsberg's goal in game 1.
Ridiculous.
Like, he's making Colorado wish they still had old man Forsberg, who is also a Predators alumni.
But you got to figure, like, the Avalanche feel like they let at least one of those games slip through their fingers. They scored 4 goals in game 2. And they lost. Like, you get 4 goals on that defense in Pekka Rinne, and you don't win the game. you got to pack up and get ready for the World Championships in Denmark.
Do you think they're just like you were saying? They got slow starts. Are they just kind of they know that they got these guys?
It's kind of what we talked about last week. They're not really taking it seriously. Like they haven't flipped the switch into that high gear. They're going to need it in the second round, regardless of who they play. But I haven't really liked Nashville's game at all. They've been sloppy, like really sloppy in their own end. Again, great offense, like they're scoring beautiful goals, but they're not defending up to the way that they should.
It also makes me think, like, if they lose one of these games in Colorado, it very easily could flip the on switch on for them. And if they're not even playing as well as they can, and that defense is not playing to their full capability, and Pecorine, as old as he is getting, is not playing at his best as soon as they do.
And we've seen this from Chicago in the past when they were on their runs, where they'd kind of like pussyfoot around the first round, win it in 6 when they could have won it in 5 or 4, and then they flip the switch. But yeah, like I feel bad for the Avalanche because like Jonathan Bernier sucks. He's not a good goalie. This is a tape show, but the Devils looks like they've clinched Game 3, and now this
4-2.
And this series is all of a sudden going to get a little more interesting.
I was ready to come in here going, Boston up 3-0 on the lowly loser Toronto Maple Leafs, and then this series and that. But like, well, that's why it's the playoffs because things don't wind up in 2 games.
I watched the whole Leaf game. I wouldn't worry about the Bruins not winning that series. They played a poor game tonight. They were bad.
Well, and they got the raw end of the deal. The first Leafs goal came on a bad call. That was not a penalty.
It's funny.
It was blatantly not a penalty. It's like the officials weren't watching, and then they decided to call it where if you're not watching, it like hits the glass multiple times and then goes
But
over.
it kind of rode the wave. Like, it's hard to say that when it happens in an instant and you got 6'5" monsters in your way. We've got every camera in the building.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
but if you don't know for sure, I think you're supposed to not make the
always.
call.
Yeah, you don't want a game to change on a call like that, for sure. Cherry made a good point today.
Yeah, he made a great point.
And he was like being really, we should review this and review that, and then we should go to intermissions and we should review. He's like, these things always even out. And that's something I've said on the show a lot, and I agree. Like, it was
Marchand's goal in Game 1.
Yeah, like,
offside.
Yeah, like we can't review offsides. I'm sorry, we can't. It's an old golf saying. It's the rub of the green. But these things, like Cherry's point today, is that this shit evens out over the course of a 7-game series. And what we're saying, like the Marchand thing and now this, even Steven. Great point.
Yeah.
But don't delay the games to the point where we're sitting around like baseball for 3.5 hours and our clothes go out of style.
No, and as time's gone on with the offsides, like I don't mind stopping things when there's something important on the line or whatever, but the more and more I think about offsides, it's like the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law type of conversation.
Totally.
And I've seen enough of them now where I go, you know what? If it's that close, is that really the meaning? Is that why we have offsides?
No, it's not why we have the rule. That's a very good... I've never thought about it that way. That's
it's not a matter of millimeters or centimeters or whatever. It's just so that you don't get cherry pickers or whatever. Like, this is not why the rule and the line was implemented.
But again, that human error... part of officiating, I think, is also what makes sports compelling.
Oh, it was fantastic because you watch that, and of course I immediately thought of your multiple takes on the podcast of that human error. That's what creates the storylines. That what creates the drama. And then all of a sudden they score 7 seconds later, and it's just, well, what are they going to do now? How do they come back from that? And it just throws this absolute wrench into everything in the game. And as much as you hate it, that human error. Like I'm glued to the TV.
It's
after
must
that.
see. Yeah, it's must see television to see what happens next. And if you're gonna sterilize the game, then it gets boring. Like they were talking about going to reviews in baseball this year for balls and strikes.
No,
you lose me.
There's the game. That's the
you lose me as a sports fan. You lose me with that.
I can't even watch baseball as slow as it is to begin
but like
with.
to
insult baseball.
The only thing that I think you should review for in the NHL is anything to do with a puck actually going in the net or goalie interference. Once they can determine what that rule is, and they gotta get that right.
In 10, 15 years, they'll figure out what that is, and then the robots in Toronto will know how to pick if that's a goal or that's goalie interference. So give it 10, 15 years, everything will be just fine.
I think if the guy's in the blue and he's making contact with the goalie, like if the guy's in the blue before the puck goes into the crease, and he's making contact with the goalie, it's goalie interference.
Yeah, pretty much.
If he makes contact with the goalie and gets out of the crease and the puck flies into the net, it's a good goal. I think it's about as black and white. You'll get plays where a goalie gets bumped and doesn't necessarily have time to recover.
Yeah.
But for me, that's the simplest way to make it really definitive and reviewable in a way that the fans can understand it, and more importantly, the players and the coaches can understand it.
I picture the figuring out what goaltender interference is like what defines it is 3 or 4 essay paragraphs of here's how this could be goal interference, like just black and white. And what you just said, that's what needs to happen. I don't know. I have no idea how it's decided, how it's determined, but it's awful. It's bad for everybody involved.
I just imagine that meme on the internet of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the whiteboard.
Pavlov or what's his name? Oh, Pepe Silva.
Yeah, Pepe Silva.
That's
Gary Bettman trying to explain goalie interference to all of us.
Again, it's a taped show, and we got the end of the Devils Tampa Bay Game 3 on, ending in some fisticuffs and some brouhahas.
Well, they've popped 2 empty net goals, and now it's going to just descend into madness.
Yeah, but that's what you want to do if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, I've seen a few of these where you look at like the Kings and the way they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't we seen more of this to just try and like throw a wrench in the plans of the team that's winning? And I know it's not the best and most sportsmanlike way to do things, but if you're like the LA Kings, that's how you win titles.
I got to say, even though it's not a very high-scoring series, I watched that entire game last night.
I've watched every period and overtime period of Kings, Golden Knights.
Been great.
And I don't know what the hell is what I like. Vegas is just an anomaly, an enigma.
They're not that much better than the Kings. They've all been 1-goal games. Like, it's been good hockey, and it could easily be 2-1 for either team or 3-0 Kings right now.
It's great hockey, but it's like we discussed last week that the Kings are going to come in. They're going to hammer and staple the shit out of the Golden Knights to the boards, and they're going to score. Jeff Carter or Kopitar is going to score some goals, and that's going to be that.
Did you catch the hit totals? I think it was a Game 1 or Game 2 or like record-setting totals, but it was in Las Vegas, so they're suggesting that whoever was counting the hits doesn't know what a hit is.
One game, I think,
like touching a player is a hit.
Game 2, going into double overtime, their hits were like pushing 89 or something.
Yeah, that's a little.
One of the coaches.
That's a little Fudgy the Whale.
One of the coaches came out after, I think it was Game 1, and said if we hit that much, we'd have 4 guys out of the lineup tonight just from like bruising themselves on the Knights players. I want to say it was Kingside that said that.
But yeah, their speed and the versatility of their players in the lineup have just been too much for LA.
I can't believe it. Like it's like they're hitting them and they're bouncing up. They're getting hit, but they're making the right play before or as they're getting hit, so that the Kings on the scoreboard are beating the shit out of them in hits. But it doesn't look effective at all, and it isn't effective.
Do you think, though, that the Knights will get oilered a little bit next year? Like, you've got all these guys having career years at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they're gonna drop off the face of the map and be a 60-point team next year, but like, A, people are going to see them coming next year. Not going to catch anybody surprise. And B, a couple of these guys will have injuries. But like they've been, aside from their goaltending, like around January, which was hysterical, they've been remarkably healthy. And everybody is like having a great year. Nate Schmidt was a 7th defenseman throwaway.
Yeah.
I bet Washington could really use that guy right now.
I think almost everybody on that Golden Knights team, the teams that they came from, or where they were lost in the expansion draft, their team's going, oh shit! If only we had those guys.
A few of the guys you knew were going to be good, like Marcia Show. Like, I'm still not sure why Florida let him go, and then why they traded Riley Smith. I don't know. The good thing Dale Talon's back in charge now, because whoever they had calling the shots at the beginning of the year, I don't know what the hell that guy was doing.
That was Dale Talon.
Oh, I don't know what he was doing.
That's the funny.
Those two guys, like, those are good players in their early 20s, and they're just rocking it in Vegas. In Florida,
like we got too many young forwards. We got to get rid of some.
Florida missed the playoffs by a couple of points. Maybe those guys make the difference. Right?
I think it was one. I think it was the last day of the regular season.
Yeah.
With the expansion rules as they were, you're going to lose. If you don't lose one of them, then who are you losing like Bukestad or somebody
but
that you're going to miss too?
They traded Smith
for
not much. But like that was the thing though, and like we're all surprised they made the playoffs. But in hindsight, maybe we shouldn't have all been, because for that $500 million price tag, they got some pretty favorable expansion draft rules. Like, and maybe
damn good stuff.
And instead of just drafting a team and rolling it out, McPhee used it to compile assets and then make trades. Like, he did a great job.
Yeah.
But like, if you're prospective Seattle owners, this is like an advertisement for you to like, your money, like Jerry Bruckheimer and those guys, you're probably going to get a pretty decent team for $650 million.
Pretty damn good. Well, I'd really like to see how, I think that a lot of GMs kind of not necessarily panicked, but really overthought all the players they protected. So I'm really curious to see what they do 2-3 years down the road when that expansion draft happens, what the team looks like.
Yeah,
then.
they might be able to tighten it up, and they'll learn from their mistakes. I think Seattle will be in a bit of a tougher spot in that way, that GMs will have people who are still in the chair will still be there from when Vegas did it, and they'll know what to do.
Yeah.
Teams aren't going to be as willing, I think, to move assets to save a particular asset that is still somewhat of a risk, because a lot of these guys are young players that they're not 100% sure on how they'll perform. So
yeah,
a team like Minnesota lost a couple of guys. They're just going to be like, all right, well, you're just going to take one of our guys and not give up two that might be slightly lesser than the other guy you'd get, but combined might be of more value.
Make a weird deal where they give up a second-round draft pick so they don't take Matt Dumba. Just let them take Matt Dumba, and that way you don't lose another player and have to trade away a perfectly good... Because a lot of GMs shot themselves in the foot where they made these sweetheart deals with Vegas.
Yeah.
And then Vegas went and took another good player off their roster.
And now we have two good players, and
or you've lost a draft pick and another player. Just let them take who they're going to take, and don't give them assets. George McPhee did such a good job that he not only did he stock a 100-point hockey team, but he also managed to get multiple first-round draft picks in his first draft.
He's got some more picks coming
and
up.
He's got more picks in the next one, and next year's draft is a good draft as well.
And you know who he could get some very good roster players in this year's by trading those draft picks? We just talked about this before the show. The Calgary Flames don't have picks in the first 3 rounds of the draft, and they got some players that
might help.
There you go.
Yeah, they have a stockpile of defensemen with Hamilton, Hamonic, Giordano, Brody,
Yeah,
and
the other two guys.
That might be Vegas's Achilles heel, if they don't have a name brand defenseman back there to move the puck. We're talking about Nate Schmidt. That shows you what they got back there.
They don't have any 100% game breaker type of guys. So
Carlson.
The new Carlson that's coming in the summer on D?
Yeah, 40 goals. And
they have some really good players, but I guess, we'll see if they can carry that on next year, all of a sudden then we can give that title. But it's one of those where it's they're very good players. They don't have a Alex Ovechkin as much as people are criticizing,
they want a franchise household name.
But a franchise guy that can take a shift on his shoulders and tie a game up or whatever, theoretically.
Theoretically, they don't
Ovechkin's a bad example right now. But, it'll be interesting to see if they can weather that storm that expansion teams have when they don't have that building blocks. They don't have any players between 19 and 22 other than the couple on the roster right now, or one or two they picked up in the draft.
The cupboard's bare,
there's a big... Yeah, so we'll see if they can sustain that type of growth. The one thing before we move on from Las Vegas I wanted to talk about was... Everyone's been pointing out the stat. They're one of 3 teams that in their first year in the playoffs has won their first 3 games. So it's Pittsburgh won their first 4 and Florida won their first 3. Mm-hmm. And lots of people within the media and then fans, especially Vegas fans, are we're one of the best teams ever. And they are. But it's to me and a few people have pointed this out, and the Vegas fans some of them get all snitty about it.
Snitty.
I don't know. Is that a word?
Snooty? I like snitty. Let's make it a thing.
Snit was the creature on YTV when we were kids. I don't know.
Snit.
Is he a jerk?
Snitty is a lot more palatable to say at the dinner table than butthurt. So, yeah, snitty is fine.
But people have been pointing out it's one of those things if you talk about offensive stats in the 80s.
Yeah.
Points for players. There are players in the 80s that were great players, but their stats offensively were inflated. And
inflated.
We know that if we're longtime hockey fans, if you're comparing players from the 80s and the 90s, you're not going to say just because Peter Forsberg didn't get as many points as Glenn Anderson, that's not the defining point on who's the better player.
You don't think Glenn Anderson's a 120-point player in the modern NHL?
In the 90s, in his prime?
He's got all those illegitimate kids to support, Paul.
He's playing hard. He's playing
That's
hungry.
just a name that came to mind where I'm
just send the checks to Barbados. Don't worry about it.
How about Kevin Stevens? There's a coattail rider.
I mean, there's
Rob
a lot.
Brown.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys in the 80s, and they were great players, but there were players in the 90s that were better players that maybe didn't get the offensive stats because it was night and day with offense numbers.
Patrick Waugh had a 3.0 goals against average in 1989, so Jacob Markstrom, 2017, is a much better goalie.
Sure. I'm just saying, you look at numbers like that being put out, and you look at the rules that the Knights had going in the expansion draft. Look at what the Penguins had going in. I think there were how many? 1967. So there would have been 5 other teams coming into the league at the same time. They would have been like probably allowing some walk-ons to play with the team at that point.
It was weird what they did. Like I watched there's a documentary on YouTube actually that's really great if you're a big hockey nerd that's about that initial expansion.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot I don't know about that expansion.
It's a good watch. It's an ESPN documentary. It's a really good watch. And how they guaranteed the owners, they got together because they got just butthurt to borrow a term you on the rules. Like Montreal, Boston, Chicago, Toronto, the Rangers, they weren't the Red Wings. They weren't giving up anybody.
Really,
like bad. And so what they did, they said, well, if we're not going to give you any players, we'll guarantee one of you a trip to the Stanley Cup Finals. So they put all 6 expansion teams in one division.
That's right, yeah.
And the original 6 in another. So like for the first 3 years of the NHL, St. Louis made the Stanley Cup Finals with 49-year-old Glenn Hall, or however old he was.
And it was fun in 1970 when they added 2 more teams because the Sabres got added to the newcomer division and the Canucks got put in with the original 6. And that's why they had trouble.
And the Sabres got a Stanley Cup final berth within their first 3 years. So like,
yeah, they had really good teams in the 70s.
It's another thing where you go, well, how impressive was that for the Penguins? But I'd still say in many ways, the Penguins, even if they were in the crappier division, they were putting together like a minor league team. You know, that's just as impressive. Like, there's different factors. Like, Vegas definitely had a lot given to them. Panthers, maybe they're the best team to come out of expansion
because they missed the playoffs by a point like in their first couple of years, and then they made the Stanley Cup Finals in 96.
And they had not as favorable rules, although they were able to jig certain things when they picked up Van Beesbrook from New York via Vancouver.
And the Ducks weren't bad either, and they came in at the same time, and they weren't bad. And it's always tougher when it's 2 teams because that's a lot more players.
Yeah, they came in with the
Panthers. They came in at the same time. But the worst ever, the worst ever were the Sharks and the Senators.
Well, you forgot about the Capitals too.
Oh yeah, the Capitals in the first year that the Washington Capitals existed,
they won 8 games, I believe,
and they went into the very last game of the season at the Pacific Coliseum against the Canucks. Without a road win. They hadn't won a game on the road all year. This is a Pacific Coliseum lore. I don't know if you've told the story.
No, I never know this.
And they win the game. They win the last game of the NHL regular season against the Canucks at the Coliseum. It's like 1970, 74. The Canucks were actually a decent team that year. They won the division and played the Habs in the playoffs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They just had an off night. But the Capitals went and got a garbage can from around the corner behind their bench and paraded it around the ice like a Stanley Cup and passed it back and forth to celebrate their one road win for the season. But they might have been the worst, actually. Paul's right. They might have been the very worst expansion team in history.
I think
featuring Jim Schoenfeld.
I think Paul would.
That was Ryan's point, but
I think Paul was basically saying they might, no matter how far they go, how much success they get, perhaps some sort of Barry Bond asterisk is.
It's just, and I'm not trying to take anything away. I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, I think it's great. I think they were given favorable odds.
Yeah.
They got a lot of guys that were like borderline top 6 up-and-coming young players that would have been able to be protected in past expansion drafts. So they've got basically 3 good second lines, which is better than a lot of teams.
and a Stanley Cup winning goaltender too.
Yeah.
Who, although has not had success in the playoffs in about 10 years. So good on him for being able to turn things around.
I don't know if you can say that because like Matt Murray missed over half the playoffs last
filling
year.
in.
Like Fleury, like I don't really give backup goalies like a lot of like props when they win a Stanley Cup. Like I think it's almost kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Fleury earned his name on that cup last year.
Last year. The year before. Sure. But other years he was unseated for the job in the playoffs by Thomas Vokoun. So I mean, good on him for being able to do what he's doing at whatever age
There was
he is.
a lot of that in the playoffs in those first rounders when they would go to the first or second
those
round.
gap years between 09 and
but 2009, that save against Lidstrom in Game 7, you can't take that away from him.
No, and he, like you were saying, last year we watched. I mean, all of those Penguins series wins. He went and he was the X factor, and he earned all those wins. And then when Matt Murray was healthy again, I remember just thinking, well, why don't you just wait and see? You know, you got Fleury. He's hot. I mean, sure, I wouldn't I would have done the opposite with Keith Kincaid and Schneider, and I would have had Schneider start game one regardless. But Fleury at that time last year, I think he deserved and earned his starts in the finals, but he didn't get them.
Yeah, and you can't really second guess Sullivan because they won.
Yeah.
And Murray, I think he got like 2 shutouts or 3 shutouts in the finals. So
this is a live tape show, but we got 2 games on right now.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
I gotta go switch over to the Dave's Game Center.
I'll turn your mic off. So we got Avalanche are up 2-0 in the first.
There you go. Home ice advantage.
I'm interested for either game. A lot of post game analysis here on the MSG network for the New Jersey Devils. Hey, I got some Canuck news. No, I don't.
Jim Benning going to the draft, the lottery.
As long as it's not Trevor or Finn, just change it up, do whatever.
I thought they were going to send Henrik Sedin.
That would have been nice, but no,
It's too soon.
That's the loser.
He hasn't been hired yet. He's unemployed.
Well, they got to check his references and just see if he's right for the position within the organization.
Gonna give him a PTO?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, I flipped the game back on. I don't know. Yeah, you don't want to send Henrik to that. You don't want that smell on that. That's not cool.
Maybe he's lucky. Who knows? Second overall pick. The Canucks will pick 2.
You know who I really want to talk about?
Or he was third. Sorry.
Who?
Who's just winning me over even more than he already has is Sidney Crosby.
Oh my God!
Like he's doing this thing now. Now that he's getting a little older, a little more veteran, a little more longer in the tooth, where he knows like it's not about winning the scoring titles and winning the Hart Trophy, but in the playoffs he flips a switch. Like this guy could win another Conn Smythe.
Yeah,
he won last year and the year before, right?
Yeah, and
I don't think anybody's ever won 3 in a row.
And nobody questioned the last 2. We're like, well, yeah, look how well he played. Look how dominant he was in the last 2 years. And yeah, he has looked so good in those 3 games.
That game 3, last night was all Crosby. He took the game over completely.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent this out on Twitter earlier, but I was pretty disgusted with the Philadelphia Flyer fans, and that's saying something because they're disgusting in general. But putting Sid's hockey cards in the urinals at the Wells Fargo Center.
I didn't hear about that.
We've talked about this before, and we got at this very table, we got into a very spirited debate about bulletin board material. But why would you want to light a fire under Sidney Crosby any more than you already have? Like, all he's going to do, he's not going to get rattled by that. He's going to do what he did, and he threw them some pretty serious shit by going, yeah, I think other teams have done that already, so it's not even original. And then goes out and puts up 3 points on them.
I watched the clip. He goes, that isn't the first building that's done that. I got to, and he just he shrugs it off. He knows that, people just can't stand him in Philadelphia, and it's just, and he is somebody, like you said, bulletin board material positively affects Sid the Kid, and he did it against PK in Nashville last year.
This guy is a competitor, man. Like, this is what he lives for. He loves it when people disrespect him. He doesn't take it the wrong way. He goes, oh yeah, I'll fucking show you.
Yeah,
that's how he works. We know that about him.
Oh, I love it.
I love it too. And Flyers fans are just the worst. And, I'm glad that they're going to get blown out. I feel bad for Brian Elliott because I've actually met him and he's a nice guy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he's going to have a higher ERA than R.A. Dickey in a dome league.
He had my favorite NHL Halloween costume one year.
What was it?
He was Elliot from E.T.
That's pretty good.
That's a good.
He had the
costume.
bike and he had E.T. in the basket.
It's not as good as Roberto Luongo's this year, which was Salt Bay.
Oh yeah,
so good.
And anything's better than
that means.
Oh, the guy that was cutting up steak or whatever, and he was salting it.
Speaking of which, that guy just opened up a restaurant in Midtown Manhattan.
It's probably better than Guy Fieri's restaurant.
The reviews were atrocious.
Too salty?
Too salty and rubbery. Yeah, Guy Fieri's restaurant, that review is legendary.
Yeah.
I might go there. I'll be in New York later this year. I might go just to see what it's all about. I'll sacrifice a night just to go to. I'll do a Pucks on Net review of Guy Fieri's restaurant in Times Square.
It's Flavor Town, man.
There's a couple of stats.
I'll even wear white sunglasses behind my head.
Oh, you got it. When in Rome. Yeah. There's a couple of things because Brian Elliott, he had a great game too. There's no disputing that.
The Penguins should have probably won that game. I watched it and they weren't perfect. It wasn't a great game, but they had doubled the Flyers in shots at one point. It was 22-11. I remember but he won that game.
Matt Murray,
great game for Elliott. Great bounce back.
I think Matt Murray was letting in one every third shot was going in. I was worried, and I still think that this is the case. And I thought after Game 2 that this series was going to go 5, and I thought that because Matt Murray couldn't stop a beach ball, he was letting in way too much, and Sid was pissed off, and he was frustrated. He had 2 gaping, yawning cages that he didn't score on, which never happens. And I thought, depending, like however they start Game 3, if Murray can't save and if Sid's pissed off, Flyers could easily keep going because they get momentum and they get confidence. And I missed the start of the game. I was driving out to Abbotsford. I look at my phone and I see, Sidney Crosby's the first guy to score. And I go, oh, they're fine.
It's over, yeah.
They're fine.
And it's over.
And
if you want to finish your point, I just have one other thing I wanted to soapbox on with this series.
no, go right ahead.
I don't want to get into this because I know this could be a long conversation, but one thing I've noticed the fans, at least on Twitter, Flyers fans, but I've seen it from fans around the league, so I don't want to point them out as individuals, but calling him Cindy Crosby is not an insult. That just shows
he wears a lot of jewelry. He's got those 3 Stanley Cup rings.
Men can wear jewelry too, Dave. But yeah, it doesn't show that it's not an insult to him, or it was the same. I went off on a guy on Twitter with the Sedin stuff on their week. Like, calling a man a woman just shows you're a sexist asshole.
Yeah.
If you make a point, I told the guy I got in an argument with about the Sedins, like, if you want to argue that, like, the only way to prove you're a truly great player is winning a Stanley Cup, make that point. But if you just call someone the sisters for the hell of it, or you call him Cindy Crosby, you just look like an asshole.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
Well, Cindy's got 3 Stanley Cups and 2 Conn Smythe. So
what's that say about your team? Like, what insults,
Yeah.
That's another. When people shout, like, whoever sucks at a hockey game, like, shout, go, your team, go. If your team's barely beating them, they must suck too. Then.
You know how those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones? Those with no goalie should shut the fuck up.
Yeah. So, anyway, I don't want to go any further.
They're still waiting for Ron Hextall to dust off the old heat and wave pads and get back in there.
He is in the building, and so is Brizgoli. He has been
ever since Thomas Foster is Brizgalov just hanging around.
Yeah, well,
he said some of the fans. What was the quote? Some of the fans wanted him to be there just in case they needed him.
Yeah, he's obviously joking, but he was at Game 3 in Philly, and after Game 1, when Elliott looked absolutely like Brian Elliott, like, we're not shocked. That's Brian Elliott. He took a photo, or he had a photo of a restaurant that said Elliott's Restaurant, and he says, I'm ready whenever you are at NHL Flyers. Like, that is the same attitude that got him rolled out of town, that same sense of humor.
But as a commentator, it's
great. Love it.
Too bad we're going to be going to a war with Russia in a few weeks, and he'll probably be out of here.
I will say this.
Is Kovalchuk still coming if the nukes are being launched? Like,
he'll get out.
Nobody's doing anything if that happens, Dave.
No, I know.
What happens to the KHL season? That's the major concern on this podcast.
I know, my Gregorian Cup playoff pool.
Actually, hey, you know what? I picked New Jersey in my bracket challenge, so my bracket isn't completely ruined.
It might
yet.
be easier to play hockey after all of everything has fallen, because the whole ground will just be glass. It'll be smooth.
It's going to be like the Montreal Expos when the baseball strike happened. The Winnipeg Jets actually have won a couple playoff games. Nothing can stop us now.
That's sad. That is
sad, but
so Dave and I are starting a
Jets fly together
Splinter podcast where we talk about world politics. Listen to that. It's Votes on Net. I don't know. We'll come up with something better.
I'll teach you guys how to use the board, and you'll be good to go. I don't want to listen to that.
Oh man!
All right.
My one junior.
There's some real good stuff today. I don't know if you saw any of that. The secret client of that.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
It turned out to be Sean Hannity, the Fox News commentator.
But that was like a distraction because that overshadowed the fact that Trump was like, "No, we're not going to do anything to Russia, like restrictions." I know that his representative at the UN was like, "We are going to have strict sanctions put on Russia," and Trump's like, "No, we're not going to do that."
I'm going to call him. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to be like, "Look."
And Hannity threw the pick on that play.
Yeah,
I'm gonna interrupt this political roundtable to go to the out-of-town scoreboard. Nathan McKinnon has made it 3-0 for the Colorado Avalanche.
Still never gonna be the pride of Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia.
He'll never be Sidney.
He'll always work drive-through at the Timmy Ho's. He'll never get Sid's counter shift. In those commercials they
Sid's,
do together.
Yeah.
Nathan's mixing those fucking ice caps, spraying all over the place.
Oh, you just got to do what they always do when they don't want to make ice caps. Just tell everybody the machine's broken. It's like the you know what the worst is McDonald's McFlurries.
It's always
That
broken.
thing's always broken, and it gets over 35 degrees, and the kids are tired of making them.
How often do you go to McDonald's for a McFlurry?
In the summertime,
I haven't gone for one in a long time.
I don't know.
I think you're just in
once
the-
a couple weeks. I'll go.
Okay.
You're in the peripheral, and if you're outside or you're inside ordering something else, and they say, "Oh yeah, the ice cream's down."
Cheap ice cream is
now-
cheap ice cream.
Now that I'm on the drive, I got Mondo Gelato up the street, so it's kind of hard to justify it. But that's also like $5 a cone.
Yeah, it's a little expensive.
I know. And Earnest ice cream is great, but I don't want to wait like I'm getting into a fucking Guns N' Roses concert.
And paying the same thing.
45 minutes, and some woman with that speak to the manager haircuts in front of me, and she wants to try everything. Can I try the Velvet Fog? You know you're not going to order
You're
it.
gonna get
Everyone's
salted-
getting the salted caramel.
I know, like, oh my, people come from the
Ooh,
burbs.
green tea. I'll try that too.
Come up to the North Shore location. It's not as busy.
There's this
Okay.
North Shore location?
Yep,
Where?
Lonsdale.
Oh my god.
Also, a follow-up, I found that place I wanted to investigate. What was it? Local?
Yeah?
It's an apartment building called Local.
Oh.
I saw the sign from a distance, and I assumed, Local's opened up a location. And then I actually walked up to it, and I was like, no, that's a lobby for an apartment.
At Vancouver Folk Fest last year, I think the Earnest ice cream truck got like $30 out of me and the missus.
Oh,
Because we
man.
set up our lay bag.
You bought half a cone, huh?
Our lay bag was like right behind the truck, so it was
Your
literally-
lay bag?
You know what a lay bag is?
Dave, this is a lot for you to unfurl on this
It
podcast.
was, that purple thing I brought to baseball.
Oh, yeah.
So we had that set up, and it was like literally hopping off your couch, and there just being an ice cream place right there.
Fuck it, it's right there. Lines down.
Fucking deadly, bud.
Uh,
that some Earnest ice cream and the Bare Naked Ladies. It was a good end of the summer.
That's good.
I recommend the Folk Fest, by the way.
I've heard good things. It's a great location.
It's a good scene. A lot of people, and for you two single boys, a lot of birds, a lot of free spirits.
I'll have to look into that.
I want to go back to Philly for a second. Their goaltending, where they're kind of spinning their tires, waiting for Carter Hart, Everett Silvertip stud, to make his way to the show in a Thatcher Demko-like way.
Only they got a little bit of a longer wait.
Well-
I would assume that they'd want to give him 1 year with the Lee Valley Phantoms or whatever.
Yeah, whatever they're called this year. Carter Hart was vomiting during timeouts during, I think this was Saturday night's game versus Portland. Despite this, he went on to post a 30-save shutout to advance to the WHL Conference Finals.
Of course you did.
So Flyers fans, when they're pissing on a photo of Sidney Crosby getting ready to throw their batteries onto the ice at Sidney Crosby, they can be thankful that Carter Hart is in the system. And
He's in the hopper.
he's looking good. I am loving watching Winnipeg. I mean, not the most exciting starts of those games, but the Winnipeg Jets look just great these playoffs.
What about last game?
No, maybe not.
I only caught part of that game, but yeah, it did not look pretty from what I saw.
I would say the overwhelming theme of this show and of the first round of the playoffs is home ice advantage is a huge factor. Like, look at the Colorado Avalanche. At the time of this taping, up 3-0 in the first. I still think they're going to lose this game.
Yeah, I just want them to. I want Colorado to win some sort of game, give them wear them down, make them a little tired. So if all goes well when they play the Jets in the second round, the Jets, who hopefully are with Tyler Myers, have a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, apparently that's not as bad as originally thought.
Yeah, I heard that on Coach's Corner today too.
I get all my news from Don Cherry.
Yeah.
No, I'm just watching this going, yeah, Colorado has a good chance of coming out with the win on this one. But like I said earlier, I think this will wake up the Predators because they've been kind of sleepwalking through the last month or so.
And that's Jonathan Bernier back there, not Patty Waugh.
Where's Varlamov?
He's injured.
Oh,
Not coming back
shit.
anytime soon. Yeah.
I mentioned that this series, Pittsburgh, Philly, and New Jersey, Tampa all kind of remind me of the same because we have three guys on each of those teams on the underdog, thank you, that are Hart Trophy candidates. Taylor Hall, Nathan McKinnon, and Claude Giroux, and they look fantastic, but they're just not going to be able to, overcome these guys, these teams, Nashville, Tampa,
Depth
or
goes a long way in the playoffs.
yes, and you can
They have their own respective
yeah,
all-star MVP type guys. you know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Switched it over to the San Jose Anaheim game. For those of you at home who want to watch just a unabashed bloodbath. Now, okay, I looked at that Corey Perry hit again this morning, and I'm like the one who's always on social media saying, like, we got to get the headshots out of the game. We got to clean the game up. There's no room for that. The guy was reaching for the puck. You didn't hit him from behind, and the contact was shoulder to shoulder.
Was it just the helmet?
The helmet
leaving?
exploding and he got hurt, but like that kind of the onus of that is on Carlson or was it Carlson? Melker Carlson, the guy who got hit? He's got to be better than that. Like I would know, but I'm a shitty hockey player and I would know better than to leave myself exposed like that. Like, was it violent?
It looked violent.
Like, I think 2 minutes interference. It was definitely like interference.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was the right call on the ice. But like all the Sharks people who are crying for suspension, like, we can't suspend everybody all the time for every little thing. Like,
Well, they did it to Drew Doughty.
Yeah, and I wasn't even really cool with that one. Like the Kadri one, absolutely
bad.
That's what we want to get out of the game. Like, we want that out of the game. But like it's a contact sport, and like if you hit a guy in the shoulder, not from behind, and he gets hurt, that's really too bad. Like, I feel bad for the guy who's injured, but we can't punish that. Like, everything that looks violent can't be punished. Like, the players have to learn to protect themselves. Don't blindly reach for a puck like that. Be aware of where you are on the ice, and more importantly, for you kids listening out there, be aware of who else is on the ice.
That's some of the easiest advice is just know, like all the greats that had goons would know. Keep your head up if you be aware that somebody looking to take you out is on the ice.
Kessler or Perry are on the ice, or Bikexia. Yeah, you got to watch that. It's Michael Raffle. You're probably not going to get hit.
And they're pissed off because they're down in the series and they're looking to leave a lasting impact.
But I was watching the San Jose feed when it happened live, and this is we were talking about this off air.
Yeah.
About Homer broadcasts.
Yeah.
And they were like, "What a disgusting and selfish play by Corey Perry. He should be put in the gas chamber. Oh my God."
They said that on the air.
He hit him with a chair. He's $25,000 and a shot at the title. No, and I was like, no, it was a hockey play. It was a hit. Like, the guy was a fucking jackass, and he wasn't looking. Like, he put himself in danger, and he got run over.
I was absolutely choked with the Drew Doughty hit. Since the last podcast, we were kind of talking about him, and I'm really, really starting to like Drew Doughty. He's a douchebag. He's not the cleanest player, but goddamn does he know how to play hockey. And he is exciting to watch.
He's a dummy, but he's got great hockey one-liners. Paul, have you ever heard his one-liners yelling at guys? Like, he was yelling at Nate Posser at the end of the year to go back on waivers. From across, like, they got coincidental penalties.
There's a great video of NHL released a mic'd up compilation, and it was at the All-Star game, and Wes McCauley is like, well, Drew, I want you to take a Hail Mary pass and, basically blow through the offensive zone and not play defense. And Drew, with no teeth, he's like, "No way, Wes. I love defense. And Wes is like, "No, you don't." So I really recommend that. But
Wes McCauley is very good for the league. I love his announcements when he makes calls.
Love it. But I did not love that hit, and I think the NHL needs to take into consideration that they're reviewing a hit, because they had the spotters, there was contact to the head.
Which hit are you talking about? I feel like
the one Drew Doughty got suspended for.
It was reckless. He didn't line it up right.
But he was.
If he lined it up right, it's a beautiful hit. Perfect hit.
He's going to hit because whatever his name is.
He can't remember either.
William Carrier basically stepped on Carrier. He stepped over to try
French here, David,
to juke past him, and he saw an opportunity to hit him. He got him in the shoulder. If he was a little lined up a little easier, he probably wouldn't have hit him. But he got him in the shoulder, rolled up to the head. But after that hit, after he came back from the spotters quiet room thing, which that's great, nothing wrong with that, always good, is Drew Doughty went up to him on the bench and he said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he said, "That's a clean hit. You got me in the shoulder. That's a good hit." And there was nothing.
All of this should be taken into account when supplemental discipline is being handed out. Also, if the guy's got priors, and I don't think Doughty has priors.
Not in a while.
Doesn't seem like
he's
not like Duncan Keith.
Well, he's not Nazem Kadri, who's got the track record.
I hate Nazem Kadri. I hate him. I hate him so much. And it started before the suspensions. It started when he did the John Tavares and I are basically the same player. And then it was the really annoying segment on the 24/7 where he's talking to his dad and you realize where he gets it from, that the shit apple doesn't fall far from the shit dream. Like, I think all the Kadri men do in their house is jerk each other off.
Well, it's tradition.
Like, "Oh, you're the greatest." "No, you're the greatest, Dad." "Oh, I'm the greatest. You're the greatest." So, like, the kid grew up fucking arrogant, rich kid, played probably in the closed hockey system. In fact, I checked that he was in that closed private hockey system. Then went to the closed hockey private system of the OHL. That's the fucking London Knights.
Yeah, London Knights.
And then goes to the Leafs. So like he couldn't help it. He had to be a ball of dicks. Like
I like him. I like when he.
I bet he was one of those teenagers who had multiple Livestrong bracelets on, like 7 of them. Remember that bad?
I don't, but
he had his name not tattooed, stitched in his warm-up tracksuit.
He was shaving his own number in the back of his hair as a 14-year-old playing for the Marlies.
Yeah, it's the intent. That hit was much
it was dirty.
Than the Doughty, and
then own it. Oh, I was he fell and I lined up.
Yeah.
Look at you're like Trump. Like, we're not fucking stupid, Nazem. We watched the replay.
You're getting the shit kicked out of you.
You came halfway from across the rink and Wingles was on his knees. We're not blind, you fucking jackass. I wish that somebody in a media scrum would just go crazy and say that to him. Oh, really? Like, but
you're kidding, right? I got it on my phone here. Why don't you look at me and tell me that?
In a respectful, like, as respectful as you can way, not like me where I'm swearing at him. Be like, like, just a follow-up question. When he says that, like, a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Like, a follow-up. Like like, he was down and I was already committed to the hit. Well, actually, Nazem, we all looked at it on the replay in the building, and, you were still coming at him for quite a while before you got there, and he was already on his knees. In fact, if you would like to see the clip, I have it loaded up here. If you could just explain further why you felt like you were too committed to the hit when you, by the looks of it, are not a beginner skater and are one of the best NHL skaters in the league and probably could have easily avoided the contact. Your thoughts?
You make a very good point.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to call all the people out there in the scrum. I know that they have jobs to do and whatever.
Paul's
but
here.
Yeah, that's a good story. Are you worried that you're going to get fired for asking that question?
Well, yeah, let's ask Paul. He's in that role.
Like, would you be worried about getting in trouble with your boss for asking that question? Because if you ask that question, I'm going to read what you wrote.
It's a fine line, like, especially if you're a newcomer. It's not even about getting fired. I think it's about
the players not wanting to talk to you.
What will be the future repercussion of this? Because
that's bullshit.
Oh,
though.
it is, and it should be enforced. There should be a different atmosphere, I guess, encouraged within that relationship where you should have to be accountable and the players are held to it. But even I remember, the biggest example in Vancouver I experienced where I was standing next to someone who was following up about a dirty play was the Keith Duncan thing with...
Keith Duncan?
Duncan Keith.
Keith, Duncan.
Yeah, that's what I meant. With Karen Thompson, and it became a big deal because he probably treated her even... He probably treated her even worse because it was a woman.
Yeah, I remember all that.
His go-to was like, you probably haven't even played the game or whatever, which he would never say to someone like me, even though I didn't play ice hockey.
But for all he knows, you very well could have.
But yeah, there was repercussions, and I know she just didn't she wanted to be known as a hockey journalist, and when you start those types of challenges and it becomes about the player being a dick back to you, which is potentially what you're doing, then it becomes about people just see that. They don't see you. Some people will see what you're trying to do, but I get why journalists are always being very careful in sports.
You don't want to become
buddy thing.
You don't want to become Larry Brooks.
It's not a
where you're the story. You don't want to be the story. But I would just do it. Maybe if it was me, I would have just gone and I'm in that scrum and I go, and he says, well, yeah, Wingles was already fell down as I got there and I was already committed to the hit. And I'll be like, well. I said, okay. I would have been like, okay, that's fine. But from what we saw on the replay, you had quite a bit of time to stop before you got to him.
And then he's going to say, well, what happened in that moment, it was a hockey play, and I just finished my check. And then they go,
but at least ask the question.
Yes.
What we need to see is those questions, though, coming from the journalists with clout, I think.
Yeah, that's from the LeBrons.
Because they'll get away with it, and they'll still get answers back.
But then be that. Then
I
challenge those guys. Be that guy.
And it would open up the way that younger journalists or newer waves can ask tougher questions as well, because they set the bar, and some of them are good at that, and some of them don't always press. But those are valid questions. And Kadri's a guy. You talk about the reputation, even if you talk about his rap sheet. Off of that, the one we saw because we're based in Vancouver, we remember the Daniel Sedin hit, and everyone's like, "Oh, it was nothing," and it's like that was a clear headshot. Connected on the head.
He has no respect.
There's a pattern there, and he hasn't even been punished for all of the ones. You do need to call him out and try to change the game that way. I don't mind the Doughty one, but I'm glad that Kadri's was a higher cost than Doughty's punishment.
Well, you're in that moment when he's running him. against the boards, he's aiming for the head and he's trying to hit him with his thigh or his knee or
his butt,
his ass, to Johan Franzen. He's going to take his head off, and it's just simple as that. And you can, if I was in that, if we're talking about if somebody needed to pose that question to them, I'd say I think you should really look at the hit. You should watch the tape before you make a comment like that, because that is incorrect, and you should really look at.
When I watched the press conference and I had it on live here at the house, I was like, I actually yelled at the TV. I was like, "You're a liar!
He's such a liar!
You're a liar!"
But even if you say that's not what a journalist is there to say. If they can follow up with a question, you're not there to be like, you should watch the tape.
I might
That's
just.
I
would go. Could you elaborate on that? Like, from what we saw, it looked like there was quite a bit of time to put the brakes on or to steer.
Or
yourself.
you break it down in your own words. This is how I saw it.
He was down.
Own it. We're in Boston. We're down. We're getting the shit kicked out of us. And emotions got the best of me.
I think if he admitted that he'd made a mistake on the play, he would have maybe gotten one game or two.
And this segment would have been about 6 minutes shorter because we would have been like, Kadri, hopefully he can figure his shit out and quit just becoming blind with rage at the wrong time.
I think they got to move him. Honestly, I think they do. There's so much goodwill around the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, tonight was a great game.
Yeah.
Patrick Marleau is one of the most likable players in the league. He had 2 goals tonight.
Tie game.
And, for those of you listening, Tinkle, the Anaheim Ducks have scored a goal, which I'm sure you already know.
This is going to be a lot of playoff podcasts.
They have William Nylander, they have Austin Matthews, who plays the game the right way. Morgan Riley's likable. Anderson's likable. There's a lot of really good juice on that team.
They could re-sign Tom Plekanec.
Oh God,
well,
he has been absolutely awful. But Kadri just doesn't fit. He's more of the old Leafs culture. He doesn't fit this new culture of we're popular and sexy and cool. He's fits more of that Darcy Tucker, Gary Roberts,
Brian Marchment,
Shane Corson scumbag Leafs model. You got to get that out of there.
Yeah.
Trade him to the fucking Islanders.
He'd
fit in great on Long Island. They're a bunch of greasy buffoons.
With his friend John Tavares.
You could open up a used car lot.
He's not going to be an Islander
year.
He
could be a Leaf.
That's where that money comes from.
They're basically the same guy.
I'm just happy we're seeing suspensions being handed out in the playoffs, because I feel like unless your name is Aaron Rome, it's been lacking, and I do still think we want to get rid of headshots in the game. I'm okay with that.
We were up in arms about that when that happened, but I've gone back on YouTube and looked at it, and that was a headshot.
He should have been suspended, but it's not a matter of not suspending him. It's a matter of we've seen a lot of dirty stuff over the years in the playoffs.
But you can't say that, because then Canuck fans will go, well, then the Boston Bruins should have been suspended for this. They
broke Mason Raymond's back, and
he was butthurt,
and they beat us, and then we threw chairs through the bay store window and burned a cop car, and that's all because of
Aaron Rome's suspension.
Colin Campbell, his kid was on the team.
I'm sorry I brought it up, but I'm just happy that they're not gun shy on suspending players in the playoffs. I think.
Well, Kadri needed to go for that.
Playoffs have been a Wild West. Do whatever you want if we are actually cleaning up the game.
I still think it's Ryan's fault that we lost the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals.
Because I started drinking out of that Stanley Cup?
No. Oh, there was that too. No, you were yelling the night that we won Game 5. The three of us were together at Ryan's house, and then I won't get into the specifics, but he was saying some very besmirching
about Bobby Orr.
And I think you don't tempt the hockey gods like that.
That's me, guilty.
That's like spitting on the cross in a Catholic church.
And back then, Hockey God was a huge Boston Bruins fan.
Adam Gaudette.
You know what I'm talking Adam Gaudette.
Yes,
his Twitter handle, Hockey God.
The worst. I don't like Adam Gaudette. Let the record show. I don't
like his face.
I don't like his face. I don't like his Twitter handle. I don't like the way he wears a hat.
I don't like his NHL debut.
I don't like his stats. He's got as many points as we do.
Prove us wrong, Adam Gaudette. Prove
us wrong.
I'm gonna
get a one-way ticket to Utica. Griffin Molino played 5 games in the NHL last year too, bud.
A couple years ago, I think.
He looked pretty good on that Comets 4th line all season. No, it's just last year.
Was that just, no?
It was.
His debut then must have been a couple years ago.
No.
Gonna go to some.
Man, this Canucks era feels like it's drawing time out.
That was the Biscuit and I were at that terrible LA game at the end of the year. Molino was the only noticeable player.
Fuck.
That was probably, like, Errol said that, and so did I. He'd agree with me. that was probably the worst NHL game I've ever seen entertainment-wise. At least that 7-1 shellacking that we were all at, the Calgary game, at least that had some drama with Brock's foot being...
Oh, yeah.
And we saw Yager, so that was something. But, like, in terms of pure boringness, that LA game at the end of the year last year was the worst thing I've ever seen.
I believe you. Let's go to some Twitter questions here. I can pronounce this now. Raging Alpacas asks, what should Vegas fans start throwing on the ice for a win? And I said this a few weeks ago. I'll let you think of a response. But
I've got one.
Somebody threw a pink flamingo, a plastic one, on the ice. And I think that's easy to throw. It's not heavy. It's not going to hurt a fan. And, it's easy to clean up. It's not going to splatter.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's a hard one to top. I would say... those boas that Elvis used to wear, the feather boas?
Okay, yeah.
You could do that. Because you can't throw poker chips because the players will step on it.
You have to weight those boas.
Yeah.
That's going to be dangerous.
I don't know. Yeah, no, the pink flamingo is pretty freaking good.
You're not going to hurt anybody with the pink flamingo.
No, maybe pirate hats because they're near Treasure Island.
That's good, yeah.
I don't know, Paul, what do you got?
I'm going to say thank you cards and love letters to Gary Bettman.
Weighted down, though. Or you throw
them. Well, you could fling them, or you can crunch them up into a ball and check them that way. Like, it still reads kind.
Maybe Elvis plush toy dolls. They could sell them and you could throw them with the cape. Because you know how Elvis wore a cape in the 70s?
Well, it's got to fly.
Yeah, you put a little Elvis, like fat 1970s dead on a toilet Elvis in a Vegas jersey and a cape, and you throw them. Oh, there you go.
What about javelins?
That's dangerous.
You can charge $5 for an Elvis toy. Then you score a goal. They throw them back in the ice. You scoop them back up. You put them right back in the team store. You sell them all over again.
Whatever they can throw on the ice, the team store's got to sell them because then they can just make money, and then it's just recycling.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Albeit to me to tell a town like Las Vegas how to make money.
How to make money.
You know what you're doing wrong.
This is a hypothetical, and this is from Alpha Phi Jake out in Ohio. He goes, let's say hypothetically you're the best scorer since 99 and always have a good regular season, and we're marching into the playoffs. Would you rather get swept in the playoffs or lose in 7? Any round, doesn't matter. Do you want to get swept in 4 or lose a heartbreaker in 7 and you're the leading scorer in the league?
That's kind of a dumb question. I'd rather do neither.
Well, you got to pick one.
Well, so I know I'm going to fail no matter what?
Yeah. Do you want to...
Well, I fake an injury before the playoffs.
Dave doesn't believe in no-win scenarios. He's the Captain Kirk of the podcast.
I don't answer these hypothetical questions.
Komagata Maru.
They're dumb. I'm not going to play.
P-Mac?
Yeah, I'm gonna Komagata Maru this.
God, geez, I'll take 7 because I'm a heart and soul.
Wait, no, that's the boat off the coast of Vancouver. What was the Kobayashi Maru?
That's a weird question. That's like people who go, would you rather be shot or stabbed? Like neither.
Shot.
Fucking move over. Oh, really?
In the head, over quick. Am I dying or am I? Yeah.
I don't know. See, it's pointless.
I'll hack.
This is Canada. It'll probably never happen. You'll probably get eaten by a bear.
It'd be a knife because guns are so hard to come by.
That's right, bud.
A lot of bears in my yard. They're back. It's springtime.
A lot of bears in Ryan's backyard, too.
This is a great question from Yerky21. Which NHL relocated franchise would you most want to see sent back to its real city immediately?
This is a good question.
Hey, they're all good questions. It means everybody's interacting. It's all fine.
This is a good... I'm a heel. It's fine. This is a good question.
Okay. I think we all have the same answer, so you can go first.
Which team would I like to see move back?
Immediately
back. I would like to see the Carolina Hurricanes move back to Hartford.
Okay.
So we can bring back Brass Bonanza because it pisses Brian Burke off.
Fair enough.
You can't say Quebec because Colorado.
They've
done more with it than Quebec ever did.
And they've made a home there and a fan base, and
it's a hockey market.
Yeah, there's nothing like. It's sad to see the see the Nordiques gone, but the Avs are fine.
I'm going Hartford.
Can we just move the Coyotes to Quebec since Winnipeg's already got the
No,
Jets
you got to
back?
relocate them back.
There's enough hockey fans in Winnipeg. You could have 2 Jets.
Jets too?
Well, we've already filled the AHL arena, so we've got this old junior rink that seats about 6,000 people.
Well, they got the Moose and the Jets at the MTS Center. They could just run that thing 365.
The Moose go back to Minnesota because the North Stars aren't coming back. So, yeah, I mean, if you're having to move them back to where they were originally, I guess you go probably Hartford. But yeah, if I'm pulling a team out of anywhere, I'm probably pulling I know there are good Coyotes fans like Rhonda, even though she doesn't understand how tax dollars work.
I'm pulling the Panthers out of Florida before I pull the Coyotes out of Arizona.
But just with all the issues they've had over the past years, if I'm moving one of those teams, yeah, I mean, they would be the one I'd move out. But otherwise, yeah, and Carolina's the other. They're good fans in Carolina, but there are a lot of good hockey fans in Hartford, too.
Now the phrasing is what tickled me because it's immediately. And as we talked about on the show, Winnipeg Jets win a couple of rounds. It's just like the Expos. And then all of a sudden World War III starts. So Winnipeg Jets win a couple of rounds, just like the Expos, and then I take that playoff hockey and I send them right back to Atlanta.
Thrash time.
I don't know if they could do that. All those players are getting drafted.
We could almost do a full podcast on how, because a lot of people, the Thrashers are very much, there's so many parallels between the Thrashers and the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous. Like it's the same fucking movie. Big Country and Patrick Stefan. You could make so many different parallels.
We'll do it in the summer or something.
But like they did everything wrong in Atlanta when they brought that team back, including like the worst uniforms you've ever seen in your life.
And that was their second good. Well, they were very 90s.
They were awful, just awful. They never had a good. They had about 5 or 6 different incarnations of that same color scheme in jersey, and not one of them made any sense at all.
The best one were pretty ugly. I like those powder blue. Not that I liked them, but
the best.
The selection.
That's the best of the worst. Yeah, the pajamas.
Yeah.
The halves.
The hospital gown.
Is that one of the worst expansion teams or franchises ever?
Well, that was just like that didn't make any sense. There didn't seem to be any demand in it. Like the Flames didn't do well in Atlanta, and it wasn't like Colorado where just the city hadn't grown up enough. Like Colorado's a hockey state.
Yeah.
Denver just wasn't where it was when they brought the Avalanche in back in the 70s with the Rockies. Like Atlanta made a team in Georgia, like after it didn't work already.
Yeah, you have to educate the locals on some exciting hockey that's fun to watch and good games to go to. But
the NHL just fucking punished them with the expansion rules. And I think that's when maybe that's Gary and company learning from their mistakes, going, well, if we're gonna put a team in Vegas, it can't be bad. It's got to be good.
Well, and so much criticism was on Bettman for years of expanding south, but also look at these teams like Atlanta and Phoenix that can't even win. Well, Phoenix, I guess, won some games back in the day, but maybe Columbus can't even win a game or whatever. So him leading into the Knights' existence was all about oh, well, this is on me, like those were on me. I ain't gonna let this team fail so that people can shit on me even more.
Especially when there's a building in Quebec City that's state of the art and ready to go. Another city that had an NHL team that's trying to get one back that has an arena ready to go is Kansas City.
Yeah, and that's one of Yerke's options. Move the Devils, I think.
Houston
but
as well.
The Devils are doing fine.
Yeah,
they're right in the middle of the pack in attendance, and that's a new building that everyone says is nice, and that's a densely populated area that can support like a dozen hockey teams, which they have.
Sounds like Houston though might be the front runners to get a team after Seattle if
How
one
many
moves
teams
or
are they gonna
expands.
be?
Well, it could be a move.
I've heard
that point.
I've heard the league's magic number is 34,
Holy
and that's but that's
shit.
every team. Like the NFL wants to go to 34, Major League Baseball wants to go. Everybody wants to go to 34 for some reason.
just because they're greedy.
Yeah. Well, and then you can expand the playoffs evenly without having to do any tomfoolery of like a quick round. You could just add a round. With
That's
34
fair, yeah.
teams.
Well, I could see them doing like the wild card, have to play the next two teams to in a one game
I'd
playoff, playoff. That is already in place, but there has to be like a ridiculous amount of stats tied leading into the NHL playoffs.
Yeah, we've
for
never
the, 8 and 9 to play for
I don't
that.
think we've ever seen it. I'd love it.
But it's in the rules.
It'd be great.
We were speaking of the Thrashers, which makes me think of my next question. This is from Matthias Fallman. Who is your favorite commentator duo? And mine is generally Chris Cuthbert and probably Ray Ferraro, one up, one down. And that's why I miss TSN hockey so much. We're lucky enough that we're getting all the NBC games.
Ray Ferraro, in my opinion, right now, and this isn't biased because I've interacted with him plenty, at the rink and stuff, is by far the best color guy.
He's so good. He's so smart, and he knows the game, and he knows
when to ramp up the emotion and when to ramp it down. He's great. His insights in the game are awesome, and I love his self-deprecating sense of humor too. I was listening to him yesterday, and he's like, "Well, they're doing that at the penalty kill, but I never killed penalties." He's like,
a lot of short jokes.
Yeah, he's like, my own end. He's like, my own end was a rumor to me. I didn't cross the blue line because he was a scorer in the 80s and the 90s.
He's got a good personality where he knows how to balance it between some guys have too much where they talk about themselves and some have too much where they don't and only talk about the game.
But I also like
he's got good balance.
I like Chris Cuthbert as well as an announcer. I think he's great. Best duo ever in my lifetime and childhood. I'd have to go with Bob Cole and Harry Neal.
Love
in
them.
their prime.
In their prime in
stuff.
in the 90s, in the early 90s, they were something. They were really great.
Yeah, you can hear some of those calls like
the Yager goal in the 92 finals was one of the best combination calls ever because Bob Cole's like he beats another guy and another guy and another guy scores, and then Harry Neal was like there's only 2 guys he didn't deke out in the arena and both of them were ushers. Like Harry Neal before he got long in the tooth,
old as hell,
was just he had these seemingly in his pocket, like he just pull them out and bang, like
just sharp. I love, my favorite thing is hearing the Mark Messier no goal in Game 6, and then Courtnall scores, Messier comes back the other way, and he goes, "Now, Bob, I know where you're gonna go. This is what we feared the most,
feared forever."
Oh, I just love hearing that. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
Do you have a duo? Yeah, I'm gonna go Bob Cole and Harry Neal.
Okay.
Be my favorite.
I'm always cautious with this. Like, I want to go over a list. Like. Nobody jumps to mind as like my obvious number one.
Or just something
without
you like.
being a homer. Because then it's like,
who
did I grow up listening to? It'd be them on TV and Jim Robson with Tommy Larscheid. But I mean, that's obviously a very Vancouver-specific selection. I don't know if they're the best because so much of hockey is about like, what did you grow up?
It's your favorite
players type of thing. They're not the best.
Jimmy
players
Hewson and Craig Simpson, when they work together, are quite nice.
Very good. Yeah,
they're very good. And to give credit to the American announcers, who I'm not a huge fan of, but whenever it's Doc Emmerich and Darren Pang,
they do a great job. They do a great job together.
The first NHL game I ever worked in my broadcasting video, whatever you want to call it, career, my first paid NHL game, I was doing what they call utility cam for Fox Sports. So I was shooting the intermission cam, which was actually shot up in the Gym Broadcast Gondola. It's a pretty sweet gig if you can get it.
It's not a lot of work, folks.
It's not a lot of work, and you're sitting. It's like you're sitting bird's eye view of the game, and you got commentary because you're sitting with the announcer, the color commentator, and it was a St. Louis game, so it was Fox, and it was Darren Pang was doing the color, and they were talking about the 1982 Stanley Cup run on the air, and I guess Darren Pang was the emergency third goalie for the Blackhawks.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Yeah, I was there. It was, I was when we lost to the Canucks in the conference finals." He's like, it was like 1983 or 1984, and then like this is while they're on the air, and I just like I had like a notepad and I just wrote 82. He's like, and he mentioned me on the air. He's like, "Oh, my utility guy Dave McPhail, who was not even probably born." He didn't say my last. He's like, "Dave says it was 1982, so we're gonna go with that."
That's awesome.
And I was like, "I got you covered." But yeah, that was like and he was just super funny. He made fun of our buddy Tugboat.
Yeah,
he's like, "Look at this guy, this tall, big, beefy drink of water." And he's just hilarious. So yeah, I like Panger. There's a lot of guys I like. The guys I don't like, I can't even think of because they're terrible. Pierre Maguire, I never really liked him.
I liked him when it was a moment of just like chaos or just something crazy just happened, and that's when him freaking out was great.
But then that became part of his brand. And,
yes.
And to borrow a wrestling term on this show, he's an overseller.
Yes, he was. He knew what to do, and it became forced. Like everything was Jordan Eberle in the World Juniors.
If you ever read about players writing about him being a head coach,
Mm.
Kevin Dineen, I think it was, wrote an article about playing under Pierre Maguire in Hartford.
Yeah.
He was the most despised head coach by the players perhaps in NHL history.
I wonder, I'm going to look into that. I'm really curious to read that.
Yeah, you can Google it. There's stuff all over the internet about what a shitty coach he was.
Required reading to the Pucks on It list. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week's podcast. This is the part where I talk to myself, as you guys said last week. If you make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksOnNetCA or PucksOnNetCa. And again, if you want to support the show monetarily, pledge a couple of bucks. And you can listen to our bonus content. I had a lot of fun doing the show last week, the bonus show with PMAC. It's all about Jim Benning's time as Canucks GM. There's some things we forgot about, and we give it a good, solid grade and score. And it's a long one, but it's a good listen. Got some positive feedback on that. If you don't want to spend money on us, you just want to keep listening but help the show out, go subscribe on iTunes, rate and review on iTunes, leave a comment on iTunes. Positive, it helps us. And it helps us to beat that awful Steve Jobs algorithm.
Tim Cook algorithm.
Yeah. And if you don't use iTunes, just subscribe and rate and review wherever you can. If you haven't deleted your Facebook yet because you're worried about somebody stealing your data, go like the Facebook page. Go like us on Instagram. And that's about it. We'll go into 5 minutes for Pam.
Rock, move, get on.